I'm going to try to post this one more time. This is my story, our story. This is not a story about my wife. This is not a story about my children. Their lives were, believe it or not, barely affected by my affair. They were more affected by the alcohol and drug abuse mentioned below than anything else, which I am no longer participating in. Their lives are also no one's business. But I am posting this publicly, so I will divulge that I behaved normally at home until the last month or so. I took my kids out for weekend fun. I took care of them and provided for them throughout this entire time. I maintained a working relationship with my wife, treated her with compassion, and we even had a baby that she wanted very badly during all of this. At no point were my kids neglected or ignored. I gave them everything they needed, and though I didn't give my wife the honor she deserves, I always treated her with respect. My wife has always been suspicious of my AP and is probably in denial about the truth and the details I'm about to share, but she has agreed to start over if I am willing to do so. It was her suggestion. I am not some monster that hops from woman to woman. If we can't repair what we have left, we have agreed to amicably and peacefully part ways without disrupting the lives of our children. I would move permanently into the loft/garage apartment I remodeled in the front of the house, and we would continue working together as partners to raise the children and pay the bills until the 3 teenagers were moved out of the house, at which point I would buy her out and help her find a place nearby, and we would co-parent our toddlers civilly. Again, I'm not a monster. This is a story specifically and only about my affair partner, my honeybee. I wrote this story about her and I as a way to commit it to memory and to honor what we had. I did not come here for judgment or criticism. As stated in the rules of this subreddit, that type of comment isn't even allowed. I came here for support, to find someone to talk to about what I am going through, and possibly find a way to forgive myself in the future. That being said, this is our story. We 37M with bipolar 2, he/him, married, 4 children. 37F with major depressive disorder, she/her, married, 1 child, met in 2017. We worked together at an elementary school. She was a teacher and I was the head chef, in charge of running the breakfast and lunch services every day. Our friendship was completely innocent to start. She would stand at the head of the line while her kids piled through. Most of the teachers just let their kids go and went on their break. We would chat and just share anecdotes and laying jokes and stuff like that. One day she gave me a little post-it with her number on it. Let me interrupt by saying this gal was gorgeous. Latina, curvy figure, long beautiful hair with a slight curl, and the most gorgeous eyes I've ever seen in my life. Bluish-green, light and radiant. Big, huge doe eyes. Her handwriting was impeccable. I took the note and she let me know if I ever wanted to chat to send her a text and she would reply. So I added her number to my phone, but I never texted. I was too intimidated. A couple weeks went by and she wasn't at work one day. One of my coworkers let me know that her grandmother had died, so she took some days off. I don't know what got into me, but I called her number on my lunch break and asked her if she was okay. She seemed genuinely happy to hear from me, and we chatted a while on the phone for the whole hour about her grandmother and how she was handling it. And as soon as I hung up, she sent a thank you text, and that was that. We were texting every day. Constant back and forth, all very platonic, but constant. Eventually little comments got thrown back and forth in texting, turned to Snapchat, which turned into very flirtatious comments being exchanged between conversations. This went on for a long time. One day she asked me, "You know what we should do?" And in another act of uncharacteristic bravery, I blurted out over Snap, "We should get together." I to this day have no idea what she was going to suggest, but I had obviously gotten her attention. She questioned my statement and its validity. I explained that we got along so well it was only natural that we try to have a date. She, surprisingly to me, completely agreed with me and suggested the next day for lunch. I was over the moon with excitement, and I really had a hard time containing it. It had been a long time since someone had shown any interest in me, and this girl was drop-dead gorgeous. I was fluttering. The next day we had lunch together and had a fantastic time. She was flirty and funny and looked me in the eyes when I spoke. She really listened to me and she laughed at my dumb jokes. She was rom-com movie perfect. I was completely floored at how well we were connecting. She drove. When we got back to work, she parked and looked over at me, and I leaned in with my arms out for a hug and wanted to say that I had a great time. She leaned in with her arms out and grabbed me, and we were kissing before I knew what was going on. It was an after-date kiss. It was the most passionate and ridiculous kiss I've ever experienced. Her hands were all over me, and she was so aware of my body language. Everything was so perfect. When we stopped, we were both out of breath from excitement, and our eyes were locked. We were attached at the hip from that day on, though we never called it official. If people asked, she was my best friend. We did so many things together. We went to work happy hours and all the work-related parties and events together, despite pretending we weren't together. We went on crazy dates and had the hands-down most amazing, incredible, absolutely uninhibited, borderline insane I have ever had in my life. I won't give too many details, suffice it to say that this gal was down for whatever, and we did whatever we wanted to. I remember when she told me she had fallen in love. It was the first real conversation we had about being in a relationship together. She was terrified at telling me how she felt was going to scare me away from her because it hadn't been long and there was still so much to learn about each other. I was head over heels and didn't hesitate to reciprocate. I confessed that I had also fallen for her and that I saw something special between us. I was interested in a future with her in it. And so, that was it. My best friend was my girlfriend. It was official. If people asked, she was my girl. Months turned to a couple years with ease. She had left the school and so had I. Both moved on to better jobs, so we stopped seeing each other every day. So we rarely argued and never fought. If we needed any space, it was right there for the taking. It was ideal for both of us, especially as she was busy furthering her career in education. Though it was remarkable, the conversation was always entertaining and the intimacy was unrivaled. I've been in long-term relationships, but they were always peppered with strife, and I always felt lonely regardless. Not with her. She was perfect. She was the absolute love of my life. No one had ever treated me with so much kindness and care before. I was spoiled beyond my deservedness, and I was going to learn that lesson the absolute hardest way possible. You see, I am an awful alcoholic and drug addict. I've struggled with using my entire life, and adulthood has been no different. As the years passed, my drinking became more and more of a problem, and I was so used to being treated so well that I started taking advantage. I stood her up due to being passed out more than once. I ignored her at times. I would call her blackout drunk and talk to her romantically, and then not remember having had the conversation, cheapening the sweet nothings. I was an awful boyfriend. Things started to go downhill by year 4. I had been in an accident, on the job, thrown from the vehicle and broke my collarbone, 4 ribs and my scapula. No head injury. This led to a 6-month period of paid unemployment. My drinking got worse at this time. We saw each other less and less, and when we talked it was distant and unimportant. The personal stories and the sweet nothings had become anecdotes and stories about work. But we still chatted over text for most of the day. All day. One day I set up a day to meet up and told her how important it was that we hang out. It had been a while. She agreed and we set a nice date for the next morning at 10:00. I was so excited, I felt just like I did those years back, fluttering. I woke up from my usual night of drinking around 10:45 with the usual headache. I grabbed my phone to check the time and my heart sank into my guts. 3 missed calls, 15 some odd new text messages. She was absolutely furious and devastated. I apologized and begged for forgiveness. She forgave me and quietly told me that she needed some space. I was completely devastated. That was 10 months ago, and 10 months would go by before I would see her again. But after a few weeks we were talking every day again. This time was different. I would admit my sorrow and remorse, and I'd even stopped drinking 7 months ago. But she had already had enough of my. She had taken a job with a well-known educational television channel and was focused on her. But we still texted every day and talked on the phone here and there. And yeah, I quit drinking 7 months ago, but hold your applause. See, I fell into some with a friend of mine about a year ago and started using stimulants again, just occasionally, at first. I never told her about it. About a month ago, I convinced her to see me, and we met at the arcade near my house. We met outside. It had been almost a year since I had seen her. I wrapped my arms so tight around her that I probably hurt her. And we both cried, and she kissed me the same way I always loved. It was a passionate and sweet moment. We sat in her car and just talked while I laid my head on her chest. She made a pass at me that night and told me that making out always leads to more. Her hands started wandering and I stopped her. I wasn't ready. It was getting late, so I went home, but not before we agreed to meet the next afternoon at Target. We met and went shopping together, and again, we sat in her car and talked and kissed, and I started talking about the future. She and I kissed, for the last time, before she had to be somewhere for work. Now, that drug use I mentioned eventually turned into me getting a prescription for Adderall from my doctor and using that more frequently. On March 28th, I went back to the street for something stronger and I got extremely high. I had been awake for several days when I contacted her and professed my undying love and obsession. That I was ready to move out of my house and be with her the way we had often talked about. That we could be together again and that I wasn't drinking anymore and that we could make it work. I apologized for every single sin, to let her know I wasn't ignorant to the way I had hurt her. I tried so hard to make her understand how much I loved and fetishized her. That I had made an altar in my room of tokens that remind me of her. That I will do anything to be with her for the rest of my life. That's when she told me we needed to talk. She had found a reignited love with her husband. He had started to treat her better at home, give her attention that she had always felt was deserved, and she felt he deserved another chance at being her partner. She was, as she put it, letting him shoot his last shot, and I was devastated, and I was high as a kite, and so my sorrow quickly turned to anger and madness. I spewed out a flurry of angry, vicious, nasty, and hateful things. I told her I hated her. No, you don't. And I don't hate you either. And then she blocked me on every platform. She even removed herself from my Spotify family plan. Sounds silly, I know, but sharing music was a big part of our relationship. This hurt me pretty badly because it meant she wouldn't be sharing songs with me or hearing the ones I shared moving forward. The next day, after I slept off my fury, I contacted her again by email and told her every word of the truth about my drug use and why I had done what I did. I begged her to talk to me. I begged her to let me see her again. And she did unblock and talk to me. And she understands why I did what I did. And she forgives me. And she told me how deeply and crazily she loves me too. And she told me that what we had was so special to her, a little treasure. And that she knew the love we had will never be matched. But she can't be with me. So we tried for a month, talking, and it just wasn't working. I wouldn't stop begging. And she wouldn't stop saying no. Neither of us were satisfied. And we can't keep pretending that being friends was going to work. And she said she needed to let me go. We agreed on that today, because what choice do I have? One last goodbye. I sent her the link for the Spotify playlist I have been working on for years. 4 hours of songs, all perfectly curated from multiple genres, and everyone reminds me of her. She told me that she would listen to every one, and send me a package of keepsakes to remember her by. The last thing I said to her was "See you, Space Cowboy," and she blocked me again, for her own sake and mine. I have no idea when, or if, I will ever talk to or see her again. All I know is that today, right now, she's gone. 5 years, and I flushed it down the toilet in exchange for being up. I let my addictions control my actions, and I lost the one person in the world who tolerated them. I lost the most important person that has ever been a part of my life. And I regret it so much that I can feel my heart is broken. I wasted half a decade of her life trying to destroy mine. And I squandered my time with the one person who ever showed me true honest love. I've been crying since March 31st and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. My job is concerned and my family can't figure out how to help me. No one can. I'll heal from this in time, though I have a strong grip on my regret. I stopped using, and I'm still not drinking. I've started focusing on my family, and have agreed to rebuild my relationship with my wife, who has been waiting patiently for me to get sober and stop seeing my AP. She is a good woman and deserves the best. I may not be able to give that to her, but I'm going to try. If she can accept what I have done and still move forward with me, who am I to reject her another time? My app, Honeybee, has since sent multiple mixed signals since I wrote this account of our relationship. She approached me online and suggested we meet one last time in person to say goodbye and give honor and respect to what we had together, and then she would be gone from my life. Shortly after setting a date to meet, she has expressed that she would like to keep in contact from time to time as long as I could respect certain boundaries put forth by her. I am so confused, and I guess she is too, but she is not considering my boundaries. She is not considering that the constant back and forth between zero contact, total contact, and occasional contact is hurting my heart and making it difficult for me to decide what to do with the remainder of my life. I have of course agreed to every one of her terms thus far, but I don't know how many more times I can say goodbye to her before I make the decision myself to just cut off contact. Every time she offers something and then takes it away, it rips me open again. I can never heal at that rate. It isn't fair to anyone involved. Any advice is appreciated. Criticism, negative comments, just plain nasty things will be reported and deleted. Please don't try to kick me while I'm down. I would never do that to you.